Hello, Grots and Gits. Welcome back to Happy Crumping Wargaming. I am pumped up and I'm thrilled to be talking about the Angelic Host today. So we're going to be breaking this detachment down in detail, figuring out how the heck we're going to run it and exactly what we need to do to be able to hit the ground running with the new Codex Blood Angels. So before we get started, just wanted to give a huge shout out to the Happy Crumping Discord. If you are a member there, guys, you are the reason I am able to do this. You are the reason I'm putting this out. It's might be, like $5 a month to you or whatever, but it is actually everything to me. And I greatly appreciate all of you. And just wanted to let everyone else know that we are actually starting a new Happy Crumping TTS league where we're doing a 5-week tournament, 5 rounds. You're going to have 1 game a week matched up with another person within the Discord. It's going to be on TTS. It's going to be an absolute blast. We've run several of these this year, and each freaking time people have massively improved in their skill level of the game. People are free to stream their games on Discord or not. There's no requirement for that, but it is an amazing way to improve your skill as a player and to get matched up with people from very different metas so you can get to learn a much bigger base of the game. In order to sign up, you do have to be a member. That can be, you can either be a YouTube member or a coffee member. All you got to do is link your account to Discord, to the Happy Crumping Wargaming Discord. The bot will automatically assign your role, and then you can just go to the BCP link, which is pinned in the Discord, and you can sign up, and we will hit the ground running. I believe signups will end on Monday next week. Don't hold me to that, but I believe that's when the signups will end. Anyway, let's break this down. All right, so what is the point of this video? We're breaking down this new detachment, the Angelic Host. I'm going to be illuminating specific combinations, and I'm going to be talking about the playstyle of the Angelic Host, which will be vastly different from the playstyle of, say, the Liberation Assault Group. It is not the same army. It might be the same army, but very different detachments. They play completely differently, and we have to understand that when we're building our army. I'm going to break down some of the limitations of the detachment, of which there are some, and I'm going to give you a good starting point with a good list example for how we might proceed from here. Now, caveats. Full transparency. I do personally think this is my favorite detachment in the new Codex. That is entirely dependent upon the points on release. Currently, the Codex says that Sanguinary Guard are 50 points a model. If that is the case, this detachment is undoable because Sanguinary Guard would be unreasonably overpriced at 50 points per model. Just think about it for a minute. That is significantly more expensive than Deathwing Knights. Not saying that Dark Angels Codex is overpowered, but think about how powerful a Deathwing Knight is. That is way more points than a Deathwing Knight is for Sanguinary Guard. It's not even close, and it will. If Sanguinary Guard are 50 points per model, you can't run this detachment because this detachment leans so heavily on them that basically means that it just invalidates the army. So this is dependent on points, but I'm really excited. Let's get going. Angelic Host. So we've got some similarities. We've got some differences from the Liberator Assault Group and how it used to play in the Index. So detachment rule. You have jump pack units only. At the end of your opponent's turn, pick up 2 of them and put them in reserves. They must come down in your reinforcement step of the next turn. This does mean you will be able to deep strike turn 1. This does not mean that you can pick them up and then save them for a rapid ingress because they have to come down in your next turn. This is a good rule. It's called uppy downy. Yeah. Colloquially, it's called uppy downy. Hypercrypt has it. Grey Knights have it. It does show up in across the armies. It is weird in Blood Angels because this particular ability tends to be much better on shooting armies. It is bizarre to have this on a melee combat focused army. That does not mean it's useless. It's actually still a decent detachment role, and it is only 2 units in a strike force versus 3 like it is in Hypercrypt or Grey Knights, but it is still useful, and it will allow us to have some interesting ways to play. Now, these stratagems, which we will go over in detail in this video, allow for very interesting things to occur. I like the stratagems a lot. There is basically one stratagem that I think is like kind of bad, but it still has some uses. The others are all decent to good. So this does, in my opinion, have the best stratagems of any of the detachments in this codex by far. Now, like I said, it's a little bit of an odd attachment rule because your jump pack units are already really, really fast. They're already moving 12 inches, and this detachment does have an advance and charge strat, which means you already have that 12-inch movement with advance and charge available to them. So having access to uppy downy is a very bizarre ability, especially considering that the detachment has no way to give you benefits to charge at a deep strike. So it is super, super strange. Now, One other really important thing to understand is that this detachment, the Angelic Host, has way less melee destructive power than the Liberation Assault Group. Way less. Like, it is not even close. This army does not hit as hard as the Liberator Assault Group. That doesn't mean it can't punch. It totally can, but it is not a punch you in the face and cripple you in a turn style army. All right, let's talk about some of these enhancements, because this is what's going to set us up for the entire thing. All right. It is important to note that all of these enhancements can only be put on jump pack characters, of which there really are only 2. You only have a jump pack, a captain with jump pack, and you only have a chaplain with jump pack. These are the only characters that you can really put these enhancements on, which is actually quite limiting. If we still had access to the Sanguinary Priest, but we don't have access to the Sanguinary Priest anymore because he doesn't have a jump pack, which means he's just a useless model. But, so here's the enhancements. The first one is Artisan of War. This is returning from the index. It gives your character a 2+ armor save and adds +1 to the AP of his weapons. This is pretty cool because getting a Power Fist to AP 3 is actually quite darn useful. I don't particularly think this is an amazing enhancement. I pretty much would only ever take it if I had just points left over for it. It's okay. It's fine. Nothing special. Doesn't really change the game. Then we have the Visage of Death. Visage of Death used to have the OC characteristic of enemy models and engagement range of the character's unit. Now it's a little bit different. In the Battle Shock step of your opponent's command phase, units in engagement of this unit must take a Battle Shock test. This does not include vehicles and monsters, so vehicles and monsters are exempt from this. This is, in my opinion, slightly better, but pretty dang hard to use. You're going to have a captain-style unit engaged with, ideally, multiple enemy units, and ask them to not kill you, so that in the command step, they'll have to take a Battle Shock, which you've probably already failed if you haven't gotten them to under half strength if you're still engaged with them. So I don't know. I might take it if I have 10 points left over, although I think it costs more than 10 points. It seems like a fairly bad enhancement, although that doesn't mean there is no use for it. Now let's talk about a straight up bad enhancement. You have the Archangel's Shard. I have no idea how this enhancement made it into the Codex. This was such garbage in the index that it's back, and it hasn't even been changed. It is pure garbage. The bearer is going to get Anti-Chaos, 5-up, and Lance. That sucks. That's just bad. You're going to give a captain or a chaplain who's got strength 6 or strength 8, if you're going Power Fist, Lance. And that is what you're going to charge 25 points for? No. Anti-Chaos 5-up is literally useless. Maybe in one random matchup out there, you could have a captain with a Thunder Hammer and suddenly he's causing dev wounds on 5s, but that doesn't really matter at all. That is an awful enhancement. But it doesn't matter because that's not why we're here for this detachment, and this detachment is so good. We have the Gleaming Pinions. This enhancement is incredible. It's very good. You're going to want to always take this. Once per turn, and that's a very key word here, once per turn, when you're not in engagement range, you get a reactive move of 6 inches flat when the enemy ends a move within 9 inches of the bearer. That can be an advance, it can be a normal move, or a fall back move. One really fascinating thing is the fact that this is a once per turn ability. So let's say that you have a unit of, Sanguinary Guard attached to a captain with jump pack. And you're playing against the Canoptic Court and you fly them 12 inches. So you're going to be 2 inches away from a unit of Immortals who have a, and the Canoptic Court character says, player says, okay, I'm going to do a reactive move. So long as they end that reactive move, which they can only move they're 5 or 6 inches, within 9 inches of your character with this enhancement, you can then reactive move in your own turn. So you can reactive move to your opponent's reactive move. That is pretty dang cool and can give you some serious benefits. So understand that the Gleaming Pinions is actually a fantastic enhancement and you will be wanting it. All right, let's break down these stratagems. All right, stratagems. All stratagems really only apply to jump pack units, which means you're really going to want jump pack units, which means this detachment desperately wants you to take Sanguinary Guard, which means that I desperately hope that the Sanguinary Guard do not come out at 50 points per model, because that will mean this detachment is useless. Okay, Unbridled Ardor. I love this stratagem. Oh, also, before I get started on these stratagems, it is worth noting, before you see and you're, oh, it's broken, it's busted, this codex is so awfully powerful, oh, woe is me. Understand that every single one of these stratagems abilities already exists in the game, and it exists in better forms in other codexes. So Unbridled Ardor, for example, when a friendly Adeptus Astartes unit is killed, any unit in your army effectively, unless it's an ally, for the rest of the game, Sanguinary Guard units will get reroll hit rolls and wound rolls against the enemy unit which did the killing. Now that is very, very strong, because what it's going to do is it's going to mean that your Sanguinary Guard units are going to be Oath of the Moment agnostic for the most part. Because now if you have, say, a unit of scouts on an objective and they kill it with a Land Raider, now all of your Sanguinary Guard units automatically get reroll hit and wound rolls against that Land Raider, and that is a very, very, very powerful ability, okay? So we like this ability. It's super strong, super powerful. We love it. Now, it does exist in other codexes. So, for example, Tau have one that if any single unit gets killed in the Tau army, the entire Tau army gets to reroll hit rolls against the unit that did killing. So, like I said, it's a good stratagem. It's not busted and broken because it exists in better or at least the same level of good in other armies. Then we have Martial Exemplars. This one is fine. I have a sneaky suspicion that this will typically be used on just normal jump pack assault intercessors. This happens in the fight phase, and your jump pack unit gains lethal and precision. Lethal is an okay ability that becomes a good ability if that is your oath target, or let's say it's a Sanguinary Guard that that's benefiting from Unbridled Ardor. This can be used to really punch up into a lot of targets. So, for example, if you have to charge a Land Raider with your Sanguinary Guard, you typically don't want to do that because you're only strength 6, which means you're wounding that Land Raider on, well, freaking 6s, which is not good. But once you have reroll hit rolls with lethal, then suddenly you might be able to start punching through a little bit. So this is a good stratagem to have in a detachment that relies on its hard-hitting melee units that don't really hit that hard, if that makes sense. Then we have Armor of Contempt, which is just always good. It makes you very survivable. Armor of Contempt on Sanguinary Guard is extremely useful because suddenly you have a 2-up, 4-up that has Armor of Contempt. It makes them quite hard to chew through unless you start using your Mortal Wound output, of which they have 0 defense. So once again, cool your jets. You can deal with them. All right. Next round of stratagems, we have Descent of the Angels. Now, this is a weird stratagem because this is a stratagem that every single time it's popped up in the game is busted good. Except for now. So, your jump pack unit gets a 3-inch deep strike. And then you can't charge. I should write that down because that's really important. You cannot charge. You cannot charge. Which means that this ability is going to be useful either for late game objective stealing, which granted, that is totally real, but remember all of your jump pack infantry units in the Codex only have an OC of 1, so it's not like they're good at stealing objectives. But there's only one jump pack unit in the game, or really in the game, that has any reason to be shooting. I mean, I guess technically suppressors exist, but they might as well not exist. And that's Inceptors. Now, think about this. Inceptors, their special ability is that they can deep strike 3 inches away. So they don't need this stratagem to do a 3-inch deep strike. Which makes this kind of a useless stratagem. Because I cannot consider any time where I'm going to drop a unit of Sanguinary Guard, I'm going to have to use a 3-inch deep strike on them. And then I can't charge. Why would I ever do that? I would always be deep striking them outside of the range of the opponent's guns or line of sight, at least. A 3-inch deep strike makes no sense on a melee unit if they can't charge afterwards. Which, by the way, I don't think that you should have a 3-inch deep strike that would allow you to charge. That would actually be busted. I don't think that should exist in the game. But this is such a weird enhancement or a weird stratagem that I think most armies in the game would kill to have, that is almost useless in Blood Angels. Now, it's not exactly useless because, like I said, there is going to be a time where you desperately need to steal an objective, and this might be it, and it might be the saving grace, but it is not a good stratagem per se. All right, then let's talk about an actually fantastic stratagem that is one of the ways that this detachment actually just works. So, Angel's Sacrifice, start of the fight phase. Jump pack unit. It's really important. It only applies to jump pack units. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy model in engagement range of this unit selects its targets, it must select this unit. This rocks. Sisters have access to this stratagem as well. So once again, oh, it's busted. Listen, it exists in other parts of the game. You're fine. Now, the reason why it's very, very good in this particular detachment is because Blood Angels have access to the Sanguinor. So, for example, I've got a unit of Sanguinary Guard, and Angron charges them. Bye-bye Sanguinary Guard. They die. They've got no chance of surviving. However, I can now bring the Sanguinor down, and the Sanguinor can say, for 1 CP, Angron, you must attack me instead. So then Angron has to put all of his attacks into the Sanguinor after the Sanguinor has already fought because he has to fight first. And he will kill the Sanguinor. I mean, there's no way the Sanguinor survives that. But then your Sanguinary Guard unit is left untouched. It then punches Angron, and then in your turn, you spend 1 CP using the next stratagem to fall back and charge and then kill Angron. So there is a very strong use for the Angel's Sacrifice stratagem. It is very good. It only applies to enemy models within engagement range of your unit. It's not the entire unit like it was in 9th edition. It's not that busted, but it is a very strong stratagem, and it will be a mainstay of how this army will operate. And then, as I alluded to, we have Death from the Skies, which is in your charge phase, jump pack units that advanced or fell back this turn can now shoot and charge. Now, this is worded a little bit weirdly. GW just made a mistake. It's a very easy thing to fix. They want you to have to spend it in your charge phase, and they're saying it gives you the ability to shoot and charge, which is already after you've shot, so you can't shoot. Doesn't matter. You're only using this to be able to advance and charge or fall back and charge anyway. And if GW wants to fix it so the shooting thing works, they can feel free. I typically love these stratagems that you can use in the charge phase because now you get to see what other charges that you've made. You get to see what other options have happened. So you get to wait until the charge phase to spend your CP instead of having to front load it when you fall back and charge like many of the other stratagems. So this is actually quite a good stratagem as well. So overall, we have 1, 2, went too much. 1, 2, 3, 4 with Armor Contempt. Really good enhancement, really good stratagems. Martial Exemplars is fine. And then the 3-inch Deep Strike Descent of the Angels is like kind of bad, but there's a use. And it's weird to say it's kind of bad because in most every other army, it would be great. But the fact that it's jump pack unit locked is a problem. I would love to deep strike in a unit of, I don't know, like Eradicators 3 inches away. But alas, it's not meant to be. Now, here's the gameplay. This plays very, very differently than the Liberation Assault Group does. So do not think that you're just going to run in like a madman and slaughter units and you're just going to table your opponent, because that's not how this is going to work. This detachment does not delete units. You do not have the amount of attacks. You do not have the amount of firepower. A 6-man Sanguinary Guard unit, which, by the way, in this detachment, you might actually want some spears for that sweet, sweet lance. They only have 4 or 3 attacks each, which means a 6-man is going to generally have roughly a 20 attacks. Now, if they're attacking a unit that they get full reroll hits and wounds against, that's still a really good amount of damage, but you will not be killing a unit of a Cursed Cultist. You will not be killing Land Raiders. You will not be killing things like you would in Liberation Assault Force. In Liberation Assault Group, you'll be able to just run through some of those huge units. You won't be able to do it with this army. Doesn't mean that they don't still hit hard, because they do, but you do not delete units that you might expecting to delete. Access to your advance and charge really changes the threat ranges, especially on your unit that's going to be attached to Dante. That's no different than it is in the Liberation Assault Group, so it's still a very, very useful thing. You've got the Angelic Sacrifice, like I just explained to you. It is going to combo extremely powerfully with a Sanguinor, but it can also combo very powerfully with Heroic Interventions. So I would always recommend having your 5-man JPI units prepared to heroically intervene in order to make sure that your opponents can't necessarily just kill your units. I think it is worth noting that Death Company Marines, depending on how expensive they are, also might be fine in this detachment, because being able to add an extra 3 squads of jump pack Death Company Marines could be actually kind of interesting, especially to start proccing some of the stratagems. Your Sanguinary Guard become Oath of the Moment agnostic through the use of Unbridled Order. And when I say Oath of the Moment agnostic, what I mean is, now you get to only use Oath of the Moment on the targets that really, really want to use it. So let's say you have a 6-man unit of Inceptors, and you have 3 different targets that you desperately need your Oath of the Moment on. Well, I can use Oath of the Moment on the target my Inceptor is going for, meaning And the reason why I could do that is because now my Sanguinary Guards already have rerolls to hit and wound against those other 2 tough units because they've killed, say, my scouts previously in the game. So becoming Oath of the Moment agnostic is extremely good in Marines, allowing you to always use Oath of the Moment specifically where it's needed because your army can already hit the other things, which is a fan-freaking-tastic thing to have. Now, let's talk about some of the units that love this detachment. Of course, Sanguinary Guard. This detachment is made for Sanguinary Guard. Inceptors, oh my gosh, Inceptors love this because Inceptors have the ability to 3-inch deep strike. Once again, why that 3-inch deep strike strat that only applies to jump pack infantry thing is really weird and kind of crappy in this detachment. But Inceptors already have that ability, which means since you get uppy downy here, they can re-proc that multiple times a game. You can start them on the battlefield, deep strike them in turn 1 to actually get angles your opponent is not prepared for. You can pick them up again and do it again later in the game. So actually, when you go second and you have a 6-man unit of Inceptors ready to rock and roll to deep strike 3 inches turn 1, that can really mess up your opponent's game plan a lot of times. Just saying. Now, we have Jump Pack Assault Intercessors. They like this detachment. They can do the advance and charge. They're going to get access to their lethal and precision. They're going to be able to Heroic Intervene to proc Angels Sacrifice. So Jump Pack Intercessors do enjoy this, although they're not nearly as efficient in this detachment as they would be in Liberator Assault Group because they don't get the +2 strength and the +1 attack. Then you have the Death Company Jump Pack Infantry, I suppose. Now, these guys, I believe having a unit led by Lamartes might actually still really enjoy this army because being able to pick them up, say, turn 1, and then drop them down in turn 1, assuming you go second, you can get them to stage in places you might not be able to stage with just a normal advance. So that can be quite useful. And Lamartes being able to proc, well, he already has them having lethal, so he might have a place in this particular army. It's not going to be in the list that I'm about to show you, but I do believe that Lamartes with a Death Company Jump Pack Assault Intercessors squad can be useful. It is, of course, depending on Death Company, points, because Death Company are much weaker now than they were in the index, which means that their points better be coming down because they are much weaker. That doesn't mean they're useless, but they are much weaker, and we desperately need to see a points accommodation for that. All right, so one thing before we get into the actual list that I'm going to give you to play with. Here's the deal, guys. I love this detachment. I think it's awesome. I think the stratagems are cool. I think, well, the enhancements kind of suck, but 1 is really, really good. I think the detachment rule is bizarre, but it works. This detachment lives and dies on how expensive Sanguinary Guard are. If Sanguinary Guard are 50 points like it says in the Codex, this detachment is dead on arrival, and everyone's going to go play a Liberator Assault Group. If Sanguinary Guard are more reasonably priced at that 40 point, maybe 35 points, because honestly, 35 to 40 is pretty realistic for them, then I think this detachment is ready to rock and roll. I would argue that this detachment needs them to be at that 35 point level. Now, I could be mistaken there, and there are arguments for it. If you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, but I do believe 35 points is where Sanguinary Guard kind of need to be for this detachment to be useful. All right, now let's talk about the army that I have built. This is a starting point. There are tons of other ways that we can build this, but this is where I recommend kind of just starting with. All right, here we go. So this is going to be 1970 points based off of the Codex points. And once again, I do expect the Codex points to be dramatically lower, just like they have for every single Codex that has dropped this edition. Dante at 130, Sanguinar at 140, Mephiston at 125, simply because Mephiston is so dang good. I can't think of a reason to not bring him. He's so good. Then we're going to have a captain with Jump Pack at 85. He will have the Gleaming Pinions enhancement so that you get the reactive move, which remember can react to your opponent's reactive move. It is super dang good. We will have 2 6-man squads of Sanguinary Guard. One will be led by Dante, and the other will be led by that captain with Jump Pack. And remember, another benefit of having that captain with Jump Pack is he will still give the Sanguinary Guard +1 strength on the charge, which takes them from that 6 to that strength 7, which is a huge breakpoint because now they're wounding T12 units on 5s instead of 6s. So that really does matter. Then we're going to take 3x5 Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, 2x3 Inceptors, and 1x6 Inceptors. Now, these are going to be problematic for your opponent to deal with because Inceptors are good, but they're kind of like one-trick ponies. Once they're there, it's like, well, I don't have to worry about that 3-inch anymore. But being able to be picked back up means that your opponent will have to deal with them, which means that you will be able to force certain engagements and certain trades. They are good. I'm not certain that taking 3 units of them is the way, by the way. For right now, in my first list, I would try this, but that's something that can easily change. Now, having maybe even 2 6-mans could be brutal. The problem is points, because all this stuff is shockingly expensive. Now, Inceptors, I'm not saying they don't deserve their points, because their points are probably fairly appropriate. I would say they could probably come down a small amount, maybe by 10 points total, not 10 points per model. I mean, maybe come down to 250 for a 6-man. But they seem relatively appropriately costed. Sanguinary Guard need come down significantly. Then I'm going to take 2 5-mana scouts, simply because you need extra units. So this army here is going to have 11 independent units. Well, let me count that real quick. We're going to have Sanguinor, Mephiston, that's 2 units, 2 Sanguinary Guard units, that's 4 units, plus 3, so that's going to be 7 units, plus 2, which is 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is 12 units on the tabletop. This is enough to play a game with. It does actually score tremendously well with its ability to be able to uppy downy, so you can always be wherever you need to be able to score the points that you need to be able to score. So there is a lot of value in this detachment. I fully expect Sanguinary Guard to come down by at least 50 points per unit. So a 6-man going down to that 250 point level sounds much more reasonable and much more realistic to me. I would argue that they probably need to go all the way down to that 240, drop each model by about 10 points. That would put them at 40 points. So that would save you 120 points, which means that you're able to change the list slightly to actually get some other stuff in there. How I would actually honestly argue for 35, but at 40, I'd be willing to explore. This right here probably is not enough to really get the game done with, but this detachment leans so hard on your Sanguinary Guard that it's possible that you just kind of have to bite the bullet and deal with it. I do like this attachment. I hope the points reflect what they should be. Those Sanguinary Guard need to come down significantly. And if it does, I'm going to love this freaking attachment. And this will be what I will be bringing to a lot of tournaments out there. If not, I'll probably be stuck with Liberator Assault Group, or honestly, and I hate saying it, Gladius. I'm going to release another video specifically on how to run Blood Angels in Gladius, because I do think that is a really, really strong option right now, which I think actually beats the brakes off of any of the detachments that we've seen in the Codex, unfortunately. But for right now, this is how we're going to run the Angelic Host. Hope you guys liked the video. If you did, smash the subscribe button and share with your friends. Tomorrow, I'll be up with the Lost Brethren attachment, and I'll be excited to close out the Codex Blood Angels. And then I'm going to start putting on the table. I'm going to start doing teaching streams with them on TTS so that I can show you guys how to be using them. Hopefully, you tune in for those live teaching streams. I haven't been able to do them recently between preparing for WTC and some other things. I just haven't been able to get my live streams out as much as I want. So I'm going to start getting those back up. We're actually going to start this Friday with that too. So hopefully, we get to see y'all there. Until next time, my happy crumpers, crump on. Bye-bye.